last September 1st, in 2021, we were directly hit by a tornado that was spawned from the remnants of Hurricane Ida. And the campus, the Arboretum, the field station took a direct hit. The tornado was confirmed as an EF2 tornado, which means it had sustained winds of up to 130 miles per hour. And it went through the campus, and the tornado was 8 miles long, 400 yards wide, and lasted 14 minutes. And so it was wide enough and large enough that it caused substantial damage throughout the entire 187-acre campus. So as far as the Arboretum goes, we sustained massive damage to the collections and the display gardens. We lost more than 500 mature trees throughout the campus, and gardens were destroyed, heavily damaged, or really just eliminated in whatever way was recognizable. And so one of those gardens is the woodland garden that is behind me, that was damaged pretty heavily in the storm. Yeah, so the winds were so strong from the tornado and the damage so great that we didn't have leaves on the trees after September 1st. So September 1st we all left work and the garden was normal, and September 2nd it was gone, and there was no leaves on the trees anymore. And so basically from September 2nd it felt like fall or winter here. It was a very extended winter, and we were making decisions about saving plants or not saving plants, not entirely sure if they would live, what they would look like the following year. And so as we went through, I was making decisions about trees that would stay standing. We didn't want to cut down everything. It was an intentional decision to leave trees standing, even if they were heavily damaged, as long as they were safe to be around, because we weren't sure if they were alive or how they would live and thrive in the following months. But that wait to see what would happen felt like forever, because we didn't have leaves from September 2nd, and it felt like winter on campus. We had no fall display like we usually have. We didn't have leaves that fell in the fall. And then winter came, and then spring was a late spring. And so it felt like we were all collectively holding our breath to see what the campus would actually look like once things started leafing out and flowering again. It felt like forever. We were amazed about what was leafing out. We had trees with no branches on them at all, just fill up completely with leaves. I think we all knew exactly where and when the very first flower bloomed on campus that spring. And so it has been really fascinating to see what is left and how it's responded. Everything that we're looking at is a stress response primarily, but what's fascinating is the way different plants are responding, different plant species are responding, and what's wonderful is we have all these new lessons that we can teach, where if we had just cut everything down because it was damaged and we weren't sure what was going to happen, or we made assumptions about what they'll do, we wouldn't have those lessons to teach. And these strange looking plants behind me still remain growing, alive, habitat. We see raptors perching on them all the time. Birds made nests in them in the spring. So we are pleasantly surprised and full of awe and wonder and curiosity about what's going on here. So in this garden, so we're in the woodland garden here, and in this garden you see multiple examples of how the plants are responding. So in front of me is a tree that didn't respond at all. And so it's a dead stump. There's no life left in it. It's just a trunk. There's no growth. And but it can still be habitat. It can still be a part of a woodland. In a natural system, you get stumps like this from storms like this. And so as it decomposes and bark falls off, it becomes a different habitat through the years. So you have that type of extreme. And then we have plants that trees naturally have dormant buds that are formed when the tree is growing. When it's very, very young, these buds are created. And as the tree grows, those buds stay there and they continue to grow and multiply through the years, but they stay dormant. And they're just there. And they're called epicormic buds. And when they grow, they result in what we sometimes call sprouts, water sprouts, or suckers that you see on trees. And so those are epicormic buds, these dormant buds. And what we're seeing is, in the stress response of these trees that we left, is this growth of the epicormic buds. And so we have had trees that don't have any branches at all, just fill up with leaves, like an entire column of leaves from these epicormic buds. And then we've had some where just sections of it, just little parts of it, right? Like the tough puff here in this tulip tree that we have here has one bit of growth of the epicormic buds there, and then one up at the very top. And so that's much different than right next to it, there's a column that's a sweet gum, and that just the entire trunk was filled with epicormic buds. And so we could not have guessed how these were going to grow. And the same is true with stumps. We have stumps that have had no new growth at all from them, and then stumps like our sycamore behind us that has just turned into almost like a shrub, and will, if we leave it, result in a multi-stem tree, over time. So as we watch this, we're learning as we go, and we are researching. So we're looking at other research that's been done on stress damage, or stress responses to damaged plants from storm damage. And so we're looking at what other people have experienced, and then watching. So we have an idea of what might happen, but we don't know. We won't know until it might take decades, to figure out exactly what's going to happen here. But we're going to leave a lot of these. In some cases, the leaves that have been put out might not support the top growth, the above ground growth of the tree, and over time they might die. And so we'll decide, do we take that tree out, or do we leave it for habitat to watch over time, as would happen in a natural system? And there's a lot of factors that go into that decision making, but we'll work from there. There's other trees. There's another tree over here. It's a beech tree, an American beech, and it's the last one that was left on our campus, on this side of the campus. And it actually didn't have too much storm damage, but they're very sensitive. And they're sensitive to compaction, and our equipment that we needed to get in here, because the trees were so big that we lost in this area, the equipment that came in had to go over the root zone of that beech tree. And that beech tree is now struggling. So it was a secondary result of the damage from the storm. And so we're going to use this as a teaching opportunity. We're going to have a company come in and do air spading around the roots for our students, so they can watch that live demo and understand that that's a technique that's used, and there's professionals that do that. And then we'll add compost, we'll put a protection zone around the roots, and we'll see if we can get this tree to come back. And so again, it's just another type of learning opportunity. So in addition to the trees and watching the trees and see how they respond, it's been really interesting to see how the understory is responding too. Here in the woodland garden, this was like a forest. We had trees that were more than 100 years old. They were mature. It was very shaded in here. And so now that there's almost full sun in this area, what's happening in the ground cover layer is really interesting as well. So one of the interesting things that happened was in the cleanup, a lot of the leaf debris got cleaned up also. So all of that good material that helped with adding nutrients to the soil and mitigating freeze-thaw cycles and all of that was removed. And thankfully, with partnership in the township, we were able to replace that. The township provided us truckloads of leaf mulch that we could spread in here, which has been great. We were able to replenish that and protect the root zones and things like that. But also, we've noticed seedlings of trees popping up. Now that there's full sun, we see all kinds of sweet gums and tulip trees and oaks popping up that may not have before because the sun is here. And so that's really nice because we will eventually re-establish this woodland garden, but here we have plants that are seedlings, they're established, they're growing already. They'll add a nice diversity to the space, and they will provide us this mix of ages in our garden. So that's been really interesting too. The other not so fun, interesting thing is that way more different weeds. There's weeds growing in here that we never had growing in here before. And I don't know if a combination of the wind blowing them in here and then the full sun, yeah, that's been kind of a drag. But we're learning a lot, and it's very different. I think one of the things that's most important to learn from the tornado damage here and our response to it is that you can't make an assumption that because something looks so different and has changed that it's not functioning anymore, that it's not good or doesn't have beauty or doesn't have a lesson within it. I think that's what we learned the most here is that you have to have patience, not just go and wholesale make a decision, but really be thoughtful and intentional and think about the potential and the possibility and the lessons in it. I think that was a huge lesson for us, especially once we saw everything leafing out again and there was green where we didn't think there would ever be green again. Even if it looks a little funny, that was huge. And then as far as plants go, understanding how plants respond and a forest system responds to this type of damage is something that doesn't get studied much around here because tornadoes don't happen to forests a lot. So this opportunity to see how different species respond and how long they live after they resprout and the benefits of those epicormic buds and all those new leaves, we'll be able to keep an eye on those and learn a lot from that too. So there's just so many lessons.